Hello, this is Joe Corneli. I'm in Bedfordshire, UK, joined by Maria, Doug, Charlotte, Ray. Hi, just joined in. Hello, Ray. Someone new. Um, so maybe in the order I just said, we should catch up on what we've been doing. So I'll start because I said me first. I'm getting ready to go to Greece tomorrow very early. So I may not be here that long. I'm going for a meeting for work. And then apart from work, last week we were looking at this Peeragogy Creed. I put a link to that in the in the event. I'm going to put a link here in the chat too. It would be great to have another look at that because we really just got started last time. So Maria and Doug, maybe in that order, you can catch us up where you've been at.
I am working in my corner of the world, which is mathematics education. And I did the experiment I told you about last time I was here, where we got together online in a hangout and did a math circle online to create something together. And it worked exceedingly well. Everybody said it really worked. It was more pleasant than they expected, and it produced more better content and so on. So we are going to scale it up a bit, where we go beyond. Well, all of us are authors and educators, so we're now trying to take it beyond to more active parents with children. So it will be this math circles online. And I can report, I mean, this is peer learning and peer making together online. So it is kind of, I consider it an example of peeragogy. So I'll be very happy to provide write-ups or bridges or anything like that needed for media at any
That,
time.
that, that sounds super. We have a version 3 of the handbook. It's like hanging by a thread. Pretty soon we'll have a version 4. It could have your name on the cover, and it could have your essay inside of it. So that'll be great. Who
Sounds
knows when that'll be ready? But we don't have to wait for then. As you get things ready, send them over. We can workshop them and ask you questions. And
I want to get to that next step. So the first step, there is no peer. It's like we were working on the definition of limits and analogies for limits. So it's like there is one definition, official calculus definition of limits. So we took it to the next step, where professionals develop 4, 5, 7 different analogies that make sense, and then people can relate to that. But I want to take it like way to infinity and beyond, where every parent and child develops their own definition of limits.
hmm.
So I want to at least make a little tiny step to that direction before I write anything. So let's see what happens.
Cool. We'll stay tuned. That sounds interesting. Asymptotically, I'm sure you'll get there. Um, Doug, what's up?
Well, I'm in the final draft stage of something that I and a colleague in Argentina, Fabian Zulansky, have been working on for a while, called the Values Manifesto, which is sort of a play on Clue Train Manifesto, and basically it's a framing of the foundational step for collective or collaborative action, revolving around the idea of values being defined and distinguishing them from what a lot of people confuse values with, that are not values, and the concept of them being something that everybody collectively subscribes to and agrees to. So there's an element of social contract that involves commitment to upholding and applying the values on a steady state and comprehensive basis to everything that issues from them. And so that's in its final state. We have one more section to review, revise, and then I think we're going to be ready for runtime, which will be a short list circulation of it for thoughts and comments and feedback. I'd love to include all of you on that list. And we're also awaiting some graphical enrichment elaboration courtesy of Amanda Lyons, the graphical scribe of Peeragogy and Rheingold community at large, and so we're close to and about to launch that. So that's been me.
Nice. Yeah. Well, maybe we can. I'm guessing that's a bit related to this Peeragogy Creed, although we might have to retitle that because we were just breaking the ice last time. Charlotte, are you back with us, or should we go to Ray? Charlotte, you're back.
Ray can now go if they want.
Okay. Ray, hi. The first time we've seen you. Do you want to introduce yourself and say how you found this curious group of people? Where you
Yes.
from?
Hello, I'm Ray. Maria is my mother, and she clued me in on pedagogy because I am a self-directed learner, and right now I am working on basically leveling up my learning experiences and trying to create a personal learning network for myself. And I have a general interest in education, and I really like to explore innovations in education. So I looked at the Peeragogy Handbook, and I really like to actively participate in anything that I read. So I was curious to see what kind of a community is built around it.
Cool. Well, you
So
came to,
that's where I'm coming
came to the
from.
right place for active participation. So is that Maria Arenas?
Maria Drishkova, who is in the call right now.
This Maria, this very
Yes.
Maria right here. So it's no coincidence you happen to be here at the same time.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Are you probably calling from around the corner?
Yep.
Okay. Sometimes Charlotte and Karen do the same. Thing.
She's about to do that right now. She's locking up her bike.
Okay, so we'll have some dynamic duos. Cool. Welcome to our meeting. Yeah, there's another Maria who joined the project. Wow, in the first year, and we haven't seen her since a long time ago. So that's why I was wondering which Maria. But yes, there we go. Not too long. My attention span, however, not so good. So do you all feel up for jumping into this document, and Doug maybe walking us through that as a hands-on, because I know we were aiming to do that, and sometimes the hands-on co-editing is one of the more fun things we do. So if we lay down some virtual ink, that would be a nice time. Yeah, someone's bringing it up right there. So yeah. Cool. So Doug, over to you. Before we disappoint.
Okay, so values, at least the intention behind the meme of values in this context, are for the most part aspirational / precatory. Precatory is a term from legal arts that means not legally binding. It's sort of nice language, but never of effect or import. No significant legal rights or impositions arise from them. And values are often confused, confounded, and mashed up with religion, politics, morals, ethics, and an array of variations of those themes that actually do not equal values per se, but represent additives or filters or variations imposed above and beyond values because they're more discretion and choice driven and based. So the kind of values that I'm advocating promoting are of the fundamental kind, sort of like fundamental principles in science. It's the concept of fundamental values, and the operative vision and premise for them is that number one, they are additive. Number two, they're cumulative. Number three, they're inclusive. Number four, they're positive in nature in terms of adding or enhancing or increasing the amount of value generation that's created by the joint endeavor. So there's no sort of to the mathematicians here, of which there are a lot. There's no negative values. There are actions and choices that can destroy value, or that can damage value, or that can reduce value. And there are actions that can be done and engaged in service to a value. Our argument and position is that if increasing value in one dimension is at the expense of values, plural, in several other dimensions, then it is an ultimately destructive endeavor rather than an affirmative and constructive endeavor. Yep.
May I ask a math question? Can
Sure.
you make an example and the counter example of a value? Because you talked about how some things are and aren't. And I think I immediately kind of started to struggle there to produce. And I think it would help actually with the document to right away maybe help something.
Okay, let me give me 1 minute, and I'm going to pull something up that I think will help. The key, I think, the key aspect of this is that the concept of value in the industrial era has been singularly focused on one metric and one metric only, which is financial and financial return and profit. That's been the dominant value, the controlling value for most of the globe, whether on the receiving end of damage or consequence or exploitation, generally negative, or the 1% who have profited and benefited. But pretty much our whole cultural imprint in the developed world has been driven and dominated and controlled by whether the metric maps to increasing profit and wealth and money, or whether it doesn't. So our sort of vision and goal is to escape that construct and to posit a multifaceted, multidimensional definition of values, plural. And I'm going to pull up a section of the actual manifesto that'll give you a sense of how we language that.
I have a very selfish reason because I am working on my manifesto too. So I want to see if what I listed are even values or not.
Understood. And there are a lot of things out there. There are folks that have generated sort of voluminous, all-inclusive, comprehensive lists of all the values or possible and potential values. We're not inclined to go there. For us, it's much more about I wonder whether my brain isn't up, because that would be something else to show you. But bear with me 1 sec.
As well, Doug is doing one kind of patter thing. I will say, as where we're going with this is, once we get done with this, then there's obviously part 2 coming up. And I think I started last week or so on part 3. So we've worked backwards to values from creed and some of the other ideas and items down there. You see down below on the document are like kind of how inclusion, how to build trust, how to assure fairness, how to stay in touch. These are little recipes for things that we could give recipes for. And Doug said, hold on, let's go back to the basics, look at where this is all coming from, and then at that point it will kind of write itself. So maybe that's,
yeah, that's exactly it. That if you have a shared value that everybody's agreed to called inclusion, then there are a bunch of things that map off of that, like the collaborative and collective whole and group is going to expend a lot of effort and energy trying to minimize the barriers to entry and maximize the onboarding, the ease of onboarding and engagement. So, you know, so when somebody pops up and wants to get on board, it's really facilitated and supported in their doing that. And it also sort of has an expression in how people are going to communicate with each other. So, you know, George Poor, posited something called chaotic chat, which is leaving enough space and time in between conversational elements for people to think about things and to process things and be present while another person's speaking. And then the notes in the chat are sort of a reflection of capturing that and recognizing that you need to be listening to the other person with 100% attention if you're thinking about what you want to say. Next, then you're not getting the signaling. So that's also an extension of inclusion, but it's also an extension of a concept called respect and acknowledgement and valuing of all contributions. So I'm going to share some language that hopefully you guys will be able to see. Let me make it big enough.
What was that mind brain that you referred to? That's an app, right, of some sort?
Yeah.
Yes, it's the brain. It's called.
Oh, it's an application that I happen to be rabidly devoted to, in which we actually went down this path because what we did was we created the brain as a graphical database that's designed to work the way our brains work. So it's comprised of thoughts and the links between thoughts, and you have parent thoughts and child thoughts, and it remembers all the links and connections. But in the brain, Fabian and I actually constructed an alternative to a traditional business model canvas or business plan that is designed to look through a lens in mapping a business through a values-centered lens. So it measures all structural and architectural features and dimensions and intentions, product, design, marketing, sales, all of that through a lens of in-service to within the context of an ecosystemic perspective. So this business exists in the middle of an ecosystem of other providers, service providers, commodity providers, processors, contributors, distributors, etc. And how can we look at everything the business intends to create and map through a values lens to itself and everybody that it's seeking to serve and contribute to. So it's very much a commons collaborative oriented starting premise and model. And definitionally, at least in our universe, values are non-competitive. And actors within a values-centered system are non-competitive. So it's common-centered and it's sustainability-centered, which means if you're going to do that, you have to have a higher consciousness than competing with somebody else. My gain in value is at somebody else's expense. Is an industrial era construct that we can't really afford anymore, or at least that's our belief.
I have a question as a newcomer. Who is the target audience of this document, and what's a use case scenario for it?
So I was the one who started creating it. So we are the target audience for it. Interestingly enough, at least until we write it for now. So yeah, the purpose of this document, why did we start writing it? Wow, that's a bit of a backstory. But we're the target audience to answer that question, and the use case is why are we writing it? It's sort of an exercise, maybe more to create it and less to publish it. But in the last few weeks or months, hello, Laura. Wow, nice to see you again.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No, okay, it's just starting to get
No,
the flame is just starting to get lit. Don't worry.
I was listening and then had to go out and pick
Then
someone
the
up. So.
rocket can blast though, so you just made it before the rocket.
Joe's
Anyway.
Joe's pulling out all this war imagery here now.
No, this rocket full of flowers. It's going to explode. Yeah, I am.
It's like those
I'm going
people
to
that
Greece. I can't
talking.
imagine a warlike country in Greece. Gosh, think of all the wars. You know, the Peloponnesian War and all those other wars that we had there over the years. Anyway, but we were in the middle of answering the question, what the heck is up with this document? So a few months ago, probably, we started thinking. There's links all down at the bottom to previous drafts and previous attempts. Like, we copied this creed from Taekwondo. We tried to create a charter. We tried to create a manifesto. There was an earlier free learning manifesto. We made a list of possible roles in book production, blah, blah, blah. But Doug basically said, if we could figure out how we all got here and why we're doing what we're doing in the Peeragogy project, then we would have a much better takeaway than even that we have in the Peeragogy Handbook. So the Peeragogy Handbook, being what it is great, but it doesn't exactly show people, like, why would you want to be doing peeragogy, or what's the point? How would you use these ideas in a slightly different context from one we ever thought of? And so we also made this paper with these design patterns. And again, it's sort of like, yeah, that's a nice cumulative thing, but we were hoping to get something that like boils down to maybe a few pages and is really clear, both for outsiders and for ourselves. But for now, I think we're still well within the insider, not so much for outsiders, but like just these questions, like how did we get here? Why are we here? And that's a question to ask ourselves and each other. And then the next question is like, what are we doing here? Like, okay, supposing we continue to be here now that we're here, what are we going to do here? And I don't even know yet what 3 is. We'll answer that when we get there.
So if you're game, and there are two things that are sort of currently being juggled, just to make sure that Ray, in response to your answer, the part of the idea of what started as the creed and we're looking to elaborate on is very much a how-to stepwise. What's a step 1? What's a step 2? What's a step 3 for any collective or collaborative pedagogical kind of get-together and process? And my suggestion was that we extract from what the Peeragogy project has been over the last few years and what's emerged from it. We extract from that sort of the essential ingredients and practices and frameworks and approaches that and tools that have supported and facilitated the process, and sort of extract all that stuff and frame it up as a useful manual and tool and handbook. As sort of another expression of the project. For me, it involves mining the gold that we've actually surfaced through lots of spinning around and wallowing around and going down lots of rabbit holes and lots of detours and lots of things that I think have been distilled into the current version of the handbook. So it's now sort of seeing whether there's a meta level extraction that could be done to really help others that want to come together, starting from scratch with no central authority, no starting framework, no initial rules, no initial mandate, no initial authority figures, and get to a working process as quickly as possible. So part of this is in service to that. As a how-to. So I did a share. This is out of the actual manifesto. But I think it sort of captures the orientation and perspective of it. And that second paragraph, these are sort of the qualitative and quantitative dimensions that characterize different values and how they act and affect and express themselves. And the operating premise is that if people can come to agreement around a set of fundamental principles and values to which everybody subscribes, that whatever the endeavor is, whatever the subject matter is, whatever the purpose or project or agenda is, that asserted the initial pull that resulted in a group of people coming together around the same table, that ultimately the one universal of every and any project is attentional investment in service to creating and increasing value, creating and contributing something to the world and the commons at large that hopefully is of positive effect. Now, that's obviously a definition that's of what we envision as a 3.0 world that we're looking to create and manifest, as opposed to the 2.0 industrial nightmare that we're trying to evolve out of and leave behind as quickly as possible. So this is in the context of being the change, for want of a better way of putting it. I know that's sort of cliche, but it's in the context of saying, if you want to do this in an informed and different and 3.0 and innovative way, then you need to walk the walk and talk the talk and start to verbalize it and express it and frame it and language it in a way that represents the underlying values that we're looking to promote.
So Doug, I have a couple questions that I think maybe we should open the floor to other people to answer this, and we try to generate. And you could maybe become the referee, and then we can sort of generate, and then you can answer Maria's question about examples and counterexamples, because you can say that's an example. Actually, that's not a value. That's, you know, whatever, Joe being silly again, or whatever.
Understood.
So you could be the referee, but the other question, if I can remember what it was, darn it, it may be gone. Anyway, yeah, I think so. I think we should open up to the floor just to kind of these questions above. How did I get here? What generated the poll? We were here because of this. Oh, this was another answer. It wasn't really a question. It was another answer to Ray, but I felt like I was in a dialogue with some stuff you had said before, Doug, about you know, like, to be honest, that this handbook is a great and all, but we haven't really done what the project could do. And I really agree with you. And even if you just look restricted to the handbook, each one has been different, and this one's more different from previous ones. But it could be that the fourth edition will be a complete rewrite in a completely new direction, and we need a new rallying flag, whether it's to revise the handbook or decide we're ditching the handbook, we're going to go do something else. We don't really know what we're doing, and I think if we don't want to spend another year spinning our wheels, you know, 80% of the time, we have to do some of the work here. So I guess that was an attempt to answer that earlier question. But yeah, maybe we should open up.
Absolutely.
And if there's other questions, if we get tired of these, how did I get here and what generated the pull, Doug, feel free to guide us in the direction of other ones, because there's these metacognition questions down in part 2. And maybe there's other questions to flesh out part 1, but I think I'll shut up and become the scribe. If you become the moderator and let some other people answer, that would be great.
Do we still want the document on?
Yeah, because I'm going to scribe it, and anyone else who wants to scribe it in there can join me. But yeah, Doug was also talking about the chaotic thing of actually listening. So I'm pretty good at typing and listening and zoning out while I listen, and just becoming one with the text. So I'll do that. You probably won't hear from me for at least 15 minutes if I can manage that.
And I think if folks want to pull up for themselves, they can. I reshared the manifesto language if you want to do that. You certainly can.
I mean, I think this is really good, but it sounds to me and maybe it's just a frame of mind I'm in today, but it sounds to me like more of the same. We spend a lot of time talking about theoretical stuff and values and things, and I feel like we're all in pretty much agreement. I'd like to really get started on applying this in other ways. Maybe you're not talking about such a long time for this to take, but it does.
No, I actually agree that I think everybody that's touched this project and is sort of around it has an implicit understanding of shared values around why people are here.
Mm-hmm.
The idea though is, okay, so how do you get that explicit? How do you codify that? And how do you memorialize people's commitment to it? Why is that important in the scheme of next steps, which would be the metacognition?
What do you mean,
right?
What do you mean memorialize people's contribution, commitment?
Well, the idea of formalizing a sort of shared value frame, and is that it's not just for the saying of it; it's actually to evoke and elicit a commitment. So if everybody in a project agrees, then there's a commitment that everybody agrees, and this is explicit, it's expressed, it's actually written out, and people actually digitally sign it, which says, I agree to sort of be involved here in a way that will be in alignment with, supportive of, and reinforcing of these shared values. Making that explicit. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It doesn't sound like it should take a long time. I mean,
not at all. Not at all. It doesn't need to.
How flexible is it? I mean, there's going to be people coming in with different values, and do we?
Which is the perfect question. Absolutely. It's a dynamic dimension of any project, I believe. Values are additive, cumulative. So in principle, if everybody agrees in inception, and as new people arrive, the values frame sets sort of way the collective agreement. So somebody has to look at that and subscribe. If there's something that they really feel compelled to add, then they should be able to do that. If what they're adding is a fundamental value, everybody should be receptive to that.
I think one of the things that we should put in it then is that every X amount of time that new people visit this and make their contribution to it, or that's part of the expectation or whatever.
Absolutely, and it's a living element. It's the underlying sort of social contract of the collaboration of the collective. And yeah, it is dynamic. It's fluid. It's expandable. But what it also does is, to a certain extent, it's going to be a first-tier filter normalizing forcing function for somebody new who comes in and goes, wait a second, I don't agree with. And this is a really simple concept. It's a really simple concept, but it's a concept that I think can be transformed using this as well, which is, if there's a real spoiler, if there's somebody who's coming in and the agenda isn't about collective, isn't about contribution, isn't about adding value, it's about challenging, it's about being right, it's about being all sorts of things, or it's about being competitive, or it's about being destructive, or it's about being other. It's a front line mechanism for addressing that, and either arriving in a place where the individual wants to join and participate and engage is okay with it, or they can make a decision to not be, but it's sort of a foundational barrier to entry. And it eliminates the adversarial, it eliminates the polarizing, it eliminates the stuff that afflicts a lot of the competition-based, adversarially based stuff that goes on in a 2.0 world.
Okay, well, we're all agreeing with each other again. So maybe we should start writing it, or are we writing it?
I think we're writing the preface or prologue to it again, and I think
Okay.
you're right, Charlotte. So I'm jumping in. I think we need to start answering these specific questions, and if you don't want to answer it, then you should remain silent. But I think these are really interesting questions. I think we should all actually want to answer. How did I get here? Why am I here? Well, why was I interested? And that will take some thinking. So like, feel
So
free to just blurt out.
I can answer if you want.
Yeah.
I don't remember historically how I got here. I think it was, it might have been through you, Joe, but it was a person who brought me, but I am here for several reasons. So I'm here for a very pragmatic reason, because I have a peer-based movement, I guess, natural math, and I want to learn how to do that thing, because there is no, I don't see any Coursera courses for beginner movement leaders, so or whatever. That's what it is for me. I'm learning here how to do my thing. And the second reason, I think, this is the alignment of values. I try to keep in touch and make friends with whatever group has the alignment of values with what I'm trying to do in my natural math. And this is a very close alignment of values, so yes. And the third one is, I think it just feels nice to be with people who share your path. We need those live communications and circles, and it's not something you can necessarily arrange locally, because the conversation at this level about values, I don't have it where I live as much. It would so this is my social circle. That's my third place. To come here and talk about what's important in life. Not just pragmatic, what I will do next month with natural math, but also what's big and important and global. So
that was really helpful and resonated quite deeply with me. It's just similar experience.
So one of the other dimensions, one of the other elements of this, a reason for making this explicit in terms of the actual values, like things like inclusiveness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is it is for the next person that comes down the pike and goes, this is an interesting project, what's this about? And it's sort of like a first thing for them to potentially experience as an onboarding reality is as an expression of who this group is and who the people are in it, what are our collective values?
So I'm just unmuting myself to say the floor should be open, so if anyone wants to jump in and take the floor, unmute yourself and start blabbing.
I'm just typing.
Okay. Well, I see you're taking notes on the different people up above. You're typing your notes in above.
I was typing myself while I was being
Okay.
quiet.
Read them out for us. I
Okay,
won't
so
type them
I was
out.
trying to, how did I get here? It's for peers to learn to share, expand, and co-support others doing peeragogy across a diverse range of disciplines. So I'm and like what Maria said about the conversation about values not always existing where you are, it's I've found in music the idea of pedagogy is people get interested and they want to do it, but it takes a lot of convincing and a long time to get people on board. And here everybody's on board. It's not I don't need to convince anybody else. You don't need to convince me. We're on the same page, and it's nice sometimes to find almost refuge in a place where you don't have to work hard and always. I mean, I'm thinking, oh, I haven't posted a blog post. I wonder if my students are going to post. I send them all an email. You're going to post something. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. When comment on someone's thing, it can be hard work getting people involved actively all the time. And so it's that's the pull, one of them for me.
People are so quiet and shy that it makes me feel like you're all very new. Ray, you're the newest person, so,
Yes,
what
I
you were
am.
saying was really interesting about your learning, your approach to learning. Do you want to just jump in and go on that? You don't have to feel like
Yeah, sure.
that it's a big thing. Just continue that theme, because that was really interesting. I think that clearly is what brought you here today. And since you're the
Yeah,
first,
and I am that. I guess I am that new person who would be maybe reading this future document to find out about what the Peeragogy group is all about. And I have found that in terms of learning goals, most people my age have other people who set the goals for them and have purely academic learning goals, whereas I have more sort of experiential goals. I'm learning goals, like I want to learn things for the experience or for personal fulfillment, and I haven't found many resources towards doing that, especially doing that in a social way. I found that a lot of the resources that I have discovered for self-directed learning were very much about going in and doing things by yourself. And I'm a socially motivated person, and so I'm looking for better ways to organize social learning experiences. And yeah, what I found reading some of the handbook was that there were very interesting, concrete examples of people who had, I guess, done projects in the vein of pedagogy, but what caught my attention in this hangout was when I think Doug, his name, someone mentioned having more extracting sort of high level concepts from the Peeragogy Handbook. I would like some conclusions, like this is what we did, and here are the values that worked. Here are some of the more general steps that can be applied more universally, right? So that's sort of my takeaway so far.
Yeah, Ray, this is Charlotte. Joe and I went through the pattern paper recently, which I don't know if you've been exposed to, but and we we pulled out things from the publishing group that I'm a part of, this nonprofit for independent publishers, and that was really helpful. I meant to go back over those, Joe, and probably will before the conference, but you know, it was just as an exercise it was valuable, and it might be.
I just was thinking that might fit in, that exercise might fit in at some point, either in step 2 or step 3. So maybe time-wise, relative to the conference in the next 2 weeks, if.
Right, and my point was with what Ray said, just having Joe to go through it with helped me a lot, and I don't know if it's coincidence or what, but the IPNI publishing group is now it's starting to happen. It's really wild, and I don't know why I kind of don't even want to believe that it's working because I've been so wounded and punished by the dysfunction. But I don't know. I just ask people stuff, and I use some of the things like validating their experience and finding something that they're really good at that they can do, so that they aren't meddling in a place that is not suited to their expertise or their level of skill or whatever. And it's not that I have all the answers, but something is just different. I think it's Karen. Karen's been helping me a lot, but
that's a nice story, and I'm glad to have played a small role in it. But I also think that you should give some credit to the organization, because you guys have just gotten through a pretty big milestone, and that must feel good. You guys have achieved a lot in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, right. But I think it's being mindful of what works in a community like this. And of course, IPNI is different than even peeragogy. I mean, we're all pretty facile with technology, and I have people in IPNI that are just, it's like using a crowbar to get them on a Hangout or a winch or something. You have to pull them in, but it just I don't know what my point was, but it's so far so good this week.
So that's cool. There's questions flowing in on the chat. Karen, do you have a minute? And Lisa, you're there, I think, in a kind of uncharacteristically non-smiley look though today. But anyway, I think you're both there. Any notes on how you got here? Not today. I mean, just in general. And Doug as well. You didn't lay in an answer of these questions. Someone's muted.
Well, I mean, I got here because I think my initial poll was that Howard sort of threw down a gauntlet in saying, let's come together and figure something out, and do a handbook on how to come together and figure something out and learn together. And that's been sort of, I think that's the essential question of the world we live in, which is how do we come together and do things together differently than the world has up to this point, in service to each other and in service to collaborating better and producing things that are positive contributions and mapping towards something more sustainable than what we've been doing, and the sort of flurries and phases of chaos and storming and norming and evolutionary steps and processes that this has gone through really drove me to look for sort of fundamental ingredients and elements that could be distilled as a lessons learned and as a means and mechanism to help others do it more efficiently, get to a punchline and get to productivity, collective productivity more efficiently, became a driving focus for me. So that's how I got here. And
well, you're touching on something interesting, which is also why, and all of us, those who started at the beginning, have stayed. And Harvest Bueno, it's like 5 years now, so there's a lot of staying. And like it is very fun. It relates to some of the stuff that Maria was saying and Laura was saying, especially it's nice to talk with like-minded people, and there's some relaxing aspects to find those people because they're not everywhere. But I think there must be something a little bit more than that after five years as well. And I think you're touching on that now, which is actually it's tapping into something that's maybe we're not done with it yet, but you can see it's a really fundamental problem there.
Doug, you said something last week, and I actually typed it to you in a message about values.
Yeah.
Shall I put that somewhere? Because I transcribed part of it. Was at 20 minutes or 22 minutes, 20 seconds, or 20 minutes and 22 seconds. Anyway, Doug sort of crystallized just the thing about values in a couple of paragraphs. And it seems it might be relevant. So I'm going to go find it and paste it in the comments.
That'll work.
Okay, I thought of something, finally. Yeah? One of the things that I thought of, one of the things that keeps me here, and I just realized it after the week session. One last week's session, we kind of went off into a tangent about educational policy in the States, which is a fascination to me, but it's not really a big peeragogy thing. And I realized, well, I wasn't actually sticking with the peeragogy project idea. I was more kind of going off on a tangent on what I was interested in, how I might apply peeragogy to that concept. But I misunderstood the entire thing. And I think one of the things that keeps me here is the willingness of everyone to learn from each other. And that's a really unique thing. When you have a group of people together who all want to learn from each other, and they're all willing to listen to each other, and they're all kind of admitting, part of willingness to learn is admitting that you don't know the answer, which is putting your ego to the side and saying, you know, I don't really know kind of what's going on here, but I know that I want to learn, and I know that I'm in a group of people that wants to learn, and that's just such a unique experience, and that's so rewarding for me. And Charlotte introduced me to this. Thank you, Charlotte. And I was kind of, right now I'm having trouble concentrating a little bit because I still feel like an immigrant in my own country. I was away for 20 years and I came back, and it's really been kind of traumatic in a lot of ways. And I'm working on a lot of different projects at the same time. And the Peeragogy project is one where I just really feel like it's okay. I'm with a group of people who are all kind of curious about the way that people can learn together in a group, when everyone is working together in a group to achieve a common goal, and everybody's willing to listen to one another. And just over the last week, I've had a number of experiences in a number of other groups that I'm involved in, and that willingness isn't there. That I find I spend a lot of energy trying to figure out how to communicate with other people, and how to really understand what other people want, and how to really understand, you know, how I find a lot of ego, a lot of kind of like, oh, can't step on that one's toes. Oh my gosh, I did that, and that stepped on someone else's toes, and there's not a lot of communication. It's a lot of kind of like observation, trying to figure that out. And here, I think the fact that the main goal is being willing to learn in a group where you just say like, okay, we're learning about learning, and we're learning about how we can learn from each other is just amazing. It's really amazing to me. So that's why I say.
Yeah, I mean, we have very few like confrontations. I mean, I feel like I was got a little bit overheated just a few minutes ago at Doug, because sometimes he talks in such general terms, and I just can't understand him. I can't see how it applies. And oh, sorry, but willingness, yeah, it is. That's one of the things that I mentioned too. You know, it's well, and the welcome. I think that's one thing we have to, you know, make sure that we put down, is that people feel welcome no matter what.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you guys can work things out, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, well actually we do all agree, let's get on with it. I think I think that that's the cool thing about that kind of dialogue.
And I don't think, Karen, I don't think that's wrong that you want to apply peeragogy to your own stuff. I think that's good. I mean,
yeah, it's as long as I don't monopolize on the hour that we have together. You know, I mean, I felt that I took the conversation away from the idea of peeragogy, and I was just focusing too much on my own personal interest outside. I don't know. That's just kind of what I reflected on after last week's session.
I think that this dialogue, someone probably would have told you. Probably they would have been like, let's move back. I mean, if they didn't, then you got free reign to kind of do it. I mean, this is kind of
okay, I guess I was sensitive about the swamp thing.
I was just teasing you. I didn't even hear about it. So
I watched it I watched it afterwards, and I didn't think you monopolized anything. And I thought actually sometimes part of learning is watching other people and letting
Mm-hmm.
somebody be an example and take the limelight and talk about things. And you need people who are willing to be examples.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be a time when, I don't know, I'll have something going on that I really want to share and would like advice and draw on your expertise, everybody else's
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and experience. And so it's a good thing. So thank you for that.
Oh, cool. Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
because you talked, we all know now that what your experience is, so that when it comes up in our lives, we can draw on you.
cool.
Yeah, but we probably will need more different treatments and training of that, because like so that's getting to me, like it's real simple, like what keeps me here. I don't remember why I came here in the first place. You have to look back to the archives, and they're kind of full of spiders right now. Um, but what keeps me here is the idea of us upskilling as a group. Like I keep coming back at that because I think these people are all individually really smart. We get together once, and then we become like superpowered of smart. So yet even given that, we're kind of like this super powered team that's not always that effective. So we go away from these meetings. It's not that we think, oh, it was empty. It's like, no, it probably fills the week with some joy and some joie de vivre and stuff. But even so, I don't think we're as effective as we could be. So I keep coming back in hopes that we're going to upskill, and I think we have. That's the thing, is I think I get some positive feedback that we have. But I don't know that we really cracked the code, and maybe there isn't a code. Maybe it's just practice. So,
Well, I thought we were getting somewhere with our accelerator, where we were kind of like swooping in and just, burrowing into actual real world things and using that theory and, all those hours and hours of talking about what this is all about.
Hey, self-awareness as a group, that is pretty cool.
Mm.
I'm really getting into mindfulness meditation now. I'm late on the train with mindfulness meditation.
That's okay.
It's pretty cool, this kind of like, becoming aware, and it's turning into this big thing in leadership conferences that I'm kind of listening to. I'm embarrassed to say, but I'll admit it, about how it's so important to become really aware of what triggers you, so that you can control your own kind of reactions to things. And I think these discussions that we have, so that's me as an individual, and it's really helped me immeasurably dealing with the issues in my life. Charlotte, you're so aware of, thanks. And I think doing that as a group is also a really, really helpful thing. And I think, spending time as a group saying, okay, what is it that we be mindful of as a group of? I think it's great. It's like mindfulness expanded.
There's a profound level of programming. I don't know whether anybody else feels this or experiences it. These days I confront it almost daily. There's this profound level of programming all of us have been subjected to out of an industrial model. And the concept of time having to be, quote, productive, and the concept of collaborative or collective activity having to be for a purpose, toward an output, toward a concrete end. And the imperative for that to be a thing, whether intangible or tangible, but it having to be productized or finite. The truth of the matter is that in that model, people are related to as commodities, and we're productive machines. So to transcend that, to get out of that programming, to break that and unlearn it, for me, the biggest learning, the biggest revelation has been creating the space and the time and the willingness to let all of the intangibles about what a human being is, as distinct from a human doing, allowing the human being dimension a whole lot more resource and attention and time and indulgence to have some time to surface and to manifest. And Charlotte, I would be willing to bet you that the shift that you're beginning to experience with IPNI is a function of a shift in you toward opening up and being more aware and receptive to the human beings and the humans interacting and communicating and connecting, even if the experience of that is it's at the expense of, quote, getting things done. It's at the expense of being efficient. It's at the expense of accomplishing and all those judgment things that industrial era experience and thinking dictate.
And it's also what binds the community. I mean, we're now using technology to bind the community and to strengthen personal connections. Where, you know, there's a contingent of people that were just kind of basically found email and stopped. You know, they just bogged down in it, and so all their information was buried in their email or on their hard drive. And getting people to the sharing level, it has been helpful, or, you know, that's what's been happening. But you're right. You know, I think a lot of the opposition and trouble and pathos of the recent experience has been my kind of war against it, if you will. You know, so, I mean, you know, yeah. I mean, I agree with you.
So Charlotte, you were teasing me about warlike stuff, but you see it was there for
I knew you were waiting to. Waiting to pound.
That was Chekhov's gun that was in the scene.
Yeah.
It resurfaced now. So, but okay. Speaking of product, I think we're gonna have to call it a wrap if we want to keep this to an hour. We obviously don't have to. Those who want to keep chatting can. It's not like we have to pull a plug. But I think actually it was a really nice meeting. As you can see, I took a lot of notes on this document. I think if anyone wants to come back in and edit or mark up or comment on these things, we could probably consolidate them, because I think I just wrote down more or less what people said. And thanks, Laura, and anyone else who added their own notes and comments up at the top. I don't know that we need to consolidate it down to a manifesto, but if someone wants to, or in a copy, here it is. It's free for all to do that. And maybe next week we can dive into part 2 on the same kind of wavelength for those who can make it.
Thanks, Joe, for doing all of the kind of like keeping the notes going and the Peeragogy Handbook. And you put a lot of work into it, and it's cool.
For now, the notes, you see, I type, I'm a very efficient typer, so I feel bad if I didn't apply my skills that I have, but other people are good typists too.
Should I copy the notes, the chat to the end of that document, maybe? Or?
Yeah, but to email someplace. Wow, it looks like people are talking about Roger Waters' brilliant album. This was a pretty interesting chat.
Oh, have you heard that album? It's brilliant.
No, I need some.
If you haven't heard the album, it's absolutely amazing.
That's cool.
It's one of the best concept albums I've heard. It starts with one soldier carrying another who is dying through no man's land in World War I think it is, and their conversation, and it's just like incredible poetry. And then there's another song on it where there's a man who's a nuclear engineer, and he doesn't know what he's doing really, but the president, and he's basically saying to his wife in the song, like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And then the president asks him to design a new nuclear sub, and he's like, oh well, you know, like this is what I have to do. So he designs it, and then it goes off onto kind of like the climax of the album for me is a little bit a piece about just the after the Industrial Revolution, especially after the Industrial Revolution, but it starts before that, the move into how human beings have controlled and dominated the planet through attempting to amuse themselves by traveling and being in different places. And it's just, well, I can't paraphrase it. It's you know, like an hour, maybe, 45 minutes, an hour. It's a brilliant album. Have a chance.
Sounds related to what we were talking about a bit.
Well, it reminds me a lot of what Doug was talking about, you know, the industrial world and the whole mindset that goes with the industrial world. And somehow, 20 years in Spain, I was living in another realm, and I've come here to Technology Center where, STEM teaching is like a big thing, and I really can't stand it's. If you're international, I'm teaching for science, engineering, technology, and math. And I love science and math. I'm not keen on engineering and technology for family reasons, we'll say. But it's a big thing here, and I just see a lot of people just really killing themselves working for engineering and technology when the world is faced with massive problems that engineering and technology can't do anything to solve, like greed, which I see like massively here, and in a hatred and anger and all of the the big Tea Party, anti-Tea Party, the political stuff happening in the States has nothing to do with technology. And
you're in a really, you're in a place like a whole other planet basically. Boston is so weird that MIT, Harvard, both right there. Like most places don't have that going on. So you may feel a little bit like there's more technology going on because you're like downstream from the tech. Like that's what the place is called.
Hey,
but,
I'm 5 miles from America's Technology Highway, 128.
If you go out like in Idaho or something, there's probably less technology. But it's still relevant somehow. But yeah, you're right. There's more to life. Anyway, we should probably call it a wrap. Charlotte, can you press the big red button, or should I do that?
No, either way, I don't care. Let's do it together. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.